Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. So good to see all of you here today. This is the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I'm your host, Jaybe. It's so good to see all of you here with me today. Welcome. Today is February 5th, 2023. So good to see all of you here pouring in for this afternoon. Just to let you guys know, the JB show is available on Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday here on RBN. You can also catch me on RBN Live on Tuesdays at 4 and the Sabi and JB show on Thursdays at 6. You can also catch me on my own channel. It's called the JB Font channel. That's right. It's named after me. Wow. Yeah. Anyway, you guys can catch me on my channel. And I stream every single Tuesdays at 2. In fact, this Tuesday, I will be having on Wyatt Reed on my channel if you guys are interested in going to my channel. My channel is also linked in the description below if you guys wish to go and give me a sub over there. Also, thank you to all the patrons on Patreon. For without you guys, we would not be able to do what we do on this channel. And it's so great. We are so grateful. The fact that all of you are willing to hear our voice, and we wouldn't be able to do it without you. So thank you so very much. Also, if you guys would like to get notifications, please go to our Substack. You guys can just go look up Revolutionary Blackout Network and Substack, and you guys will be able to get email notifications because the notifications on YouTube aren't so reliable. So make sure to do that. Also, if you are watching and you like what you're watching already, you like this face, see? Then also give us a like, give us a thumbs up, all right? Because that actually pushes us out in the algorithm so that we can get this message out to more people. So thank you so much for being with us today. As per usual, I want to say hello to everybody that's in the audience and the chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to the people in the chat and start our hellos. Hello to Eric Gray. Eric Gray says, "Sup, y'all? And to say that class society as a whole is a problem is an understatement in and of itself." Thank you so very much for that. We have Arif saying Reaganism kills. No lies detected. Thank you so very much for that, Arif. Let's see. Eric says, never forget Marsha P Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Yes, we're going to be getting to Marsha P Johnson and later in the show. So I hope you stick around for that. Also, we have Sarina Sawyer saying, greetings, comrades. Anyone else see Rome's documentary? Me? I saw it. It was actually really good. Very deep, thoughtful, raw. It hit you in your heart. And it gave you why he says the things that he says. So that's something I think that people really need to understand. And yes, the title may catch you, grab you, maybe even offend you, but once you get into it, you start to see the mind of how he thinks and why he thinks what he thinks and the environment that surrounded him and a lot of us and why we think the way we think and how capitalism itself has degraded and degraded not only our societies, but us as well. And I'm actually going to be getting into the science of poverty and the psychology of poverty in the beginning of this show. That's going to be my first story that I'm going to get into. But this is going to be something interesting. And it's going to be heart-wrenching, but it just needs to be talked about. And then I also have a couple of solutions as well that we can talk about. Some foundations you guys can, help support as well, because we absolutely need to change the fabric of this country to be more egalitarian, equitable, and equal in the society. But thank you so much for Serena for chiming in. Good to see you. We have Jessica Mai saying, yay, Jay is on. Good to see you, Jessica. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have CBC Voter saying, happy Sunday, JB. Happy Sunday to you, CBC. All right. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. Who else is in here? My bestie, Sweaty Fatty. Say, hey, besties, I am so hyped for this show. Good, good, good to see you. And I'm glad that you're hyped because the thing is that a lot of times some of these subjects go under the radar. Unfortunately, because there are certain subjects that catch more eyes, those seem to be what some channels gravitate to more often, and they kind of stay away from the more deeper, serious subjects. And so, you know, those of us at RBN, we like to focus on more of the deeper stuff. So that's one of the reasons why this is the subject that it is. I hope a lot of people tune in because stuff like this needs to be more widely talked about. And I hope to see more people pour on in today as well. But good to see you, Swery. All right. We have Poradic Loinsai. What a name. Says whole foods carbs are good. A lot of fat is bad and cholesterol should never be consumed. Okay. All right. Thanks for tuning in. All right. We have Solgato saying good day. Good day, mate. Good to see you. All right. Yepex says, yep. Oh man. Yepex coming in for the jugular says, I'm upset that Rome's documentary isn't listed on the IMDb. Coincidence? I think not. That is also a very good point. Do you have to register for that? I'm not sure. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you so very much. Very generous of you. But yeah, it should be. I mean, all films should be listed on the IMDb. Who knows? Who knows? Let's see. I mean, if they can do um other content, other documentaries, then why not? Deaf to America. They should be able to. Jenna Colby giving a wave, a smile, and sparkles. Good to see you as well. Jenna says, I've been looking forward to seeing the show since seeing Marsha earlier this morning. Yeah. I was up early. Yeah, I was doing some work and I was like, let me finish this so that it's up and early so that people can see what the subject's going to be about. I'm trying to be more professional, trying to be more organized so that I can do better not only for my channel, but for RBN because growing up and being the best version of yourself means making the efforts to be the best version of yourself. And to being the best version of myself means being a little bit more organized, being a little bit more prepared, not just for myself, but for the people who are around me. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to do more of. And I hope it shows to, especially to my RBN comrades, that I'm trying to do more, especially as far as not only RBN, but my own channel is concerned. Because number one, I owe it to myself. Number two, I owe it to my comrades. So what I mean? And it's also a respect thing too, because I want this channel to grow as much as possibly can so that people can also get this type of content more than usual. I also am refraining from using any type of foul language so that when anybody sees my show, if they have little kids around or anybody with sensitive ears, they can actually play it around them without having to feel like, oh snap, he dropped the F bomb, or oh snap, he dropped the S word. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that I'm trying to censor myself for sensibilities, like white sensibilities, but I'm trying to make it so that it is free to broadcast anywhere and everywhere, right? And I may drop a curse word once in a while. Okay. But at the same time, also, YouTube terms of service, they're like X name on the Ursing K. So I'm trying to be more cognizant of that, more aware, and I have to self censor in that way. And also for me, it's just making it more wider to an audience so that more people can get this message, which is the most important part. So yeah, good to see you, Jenna. All right, let's do a couple more. Let's do a couple more. Do we have a couple more? We have Nikki's World coming in saying, Toy Furry, I totally agree with you. And I tried to tell my mom something similar. Ah, Sweary Solar. Yeah. Oh, what did Sweary Fairy say? She said, I was actually talking to my mother about how capitalism fosters narcissism. Interesting. Very interesting. Some deep conversations happening, and I love it. I love to see it. We also had the Gen Mom saying that is working now, been trying for 10 minutes. Oh, you've been having some trouble with the chat. I'm sorry. But you're here. See, your name is on the screen. You're talking to me. Good to see you. All right. Who else? Who else is? Let me see. Yeah, yeah. I gotta curtail that. I know some of us, slip, once in a while or a lot, but we got to be careful because also we don't want our channel to become demonetized. We want to keep speaking the truth. It's just we don't change the dish. We just change the presentation a little bit. So it's still got all the spice, still got all the ingredients. It's just instead of putting the salmon next to the rice and next to the broccoli, we're putting the salmon and laying it on top of the rice and then cutting the broccoli into florets and then panning it underneath in a half moon so that it looks more appealing to the eye. But we're still serving you the same dish. See? That's the way I do it. Cat Terrell says, I rarely ever heard you curse. I do. I curse like a sailor, but I am just curtailing it more for my content because I wanted to reach more ears. So that's one of the reasons why. We also have Tony Bananas saying, good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon. By the way, Tony, I just got to say, that orange looks wonderful on you, bro. Just saying. Just saying. That's a good color. By the way, while I'm giving a compliment to Tony, compliments to all of you guys because you guys are brilliant and you all come in with so many different perspectives and so many different takes that actually educates me. And I would just want to thank you guys for tuning in, all of you guys. And one of the things that and before I get into this, because I really want to make sure I put this out here. 2023 is going to be the year where Jaybe gasses you up. And what do I mean? Does that mean blowing smoke up you? No. What it means is seeing you and your realest self and then appreciating who you are and your authentic self. So that means complimenting you on your thought process, complimenting you on your style choice, complimenting you on how kind and compassionate you are, complimenting you and letting you know that I appreciate you for who you are. Because this system wants us to be separate. This system wants us to be individualistic and not appreciating each other. And you go to your corner and I go to my corner. No, 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 no. I'm a socialist, right? Damn, you're a communist. I'm getting there. Rome, I'm getting there. But the thing is that in order for us to truly be a community, we have to appreciate one another. And because of that appreciation, I also want to not only show it, but I want to say that appreciation. And so saying that appreciation could mean that you feel that you matter because that's a truth and reality that I want you to realize. So, yeah. So we have Justin Sabaj saying, hi. Hi, Justin. So good to see you also. All right. We have Lawrence Johnson saying, hiya, JB. Hiya, Lawrence. All right. Edward Cortez says, I try to curb my cuss words, but it's hard. My vocabulary is 80% cuss words. That's okay. Guess what? We can always grow in that aspect. I follow this one lady on Instagram. Her name is Bav. She says I think it's called Bav Speaks. And Each day, she comes out with a new word and a vocabulary to learn, and she'll give it to you in a sentence structure so that you know how it's properly used and what it means, and so that you can practice saying it and using it within your sentence structure so that you can start using more words. And the thing is that this widens your vocabulary, not so that you can sound smarter, but you actually have more flavor to use. It's just like, okay, black people. You know how we talk about certain other cultures and not necessarily cultures, but certain subset of people, how they only use salt and pepper on their seasonings, and we're like, where's the spice? Where's the flavor? If you ain't sneezing, it ain't seasoned, right? Same thing with vocabulary. Vocabulary and widening your vocabulary could mean that you can be more colorful, more flavorful in the way you speak. But at the same time, it is not a means to make yourself sound smarter. It is a means to help people have a deeper understanding of what you're talking about. And one of the things that people have to realize is that it is not about you. It is about people being able to absorb the information easily so that they can get the gist of what you're saying. So, even if I have to speak in very plain layman's terms, as long as you get the point of what's being said, as long as you're getting the gist of what's being taught or the information conveyed, that's what matters. It's not about me, it's not about sounding smart, it's about you understanding. And so that's the point. That's what I mean. So I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn more words so that I can do that. So yeah, good to see you, Edward. And Hobo Roadie, we're going to end with Hobo Roadie says, my friend Charlie Brown Artman, who taught that filthy speech is sacred, used the quaintest language. Doggone was as harsh as it got. Interesting. All right. So, hello to everybody else I did not get to say hello to. Good to see you all here. And hopefully I'll get you some of your comments throughout the video, the stream, I should say, as we go along. But one of the first things we're going to talk about, and I have it ready, right? First thing we're going to touch on is the science of poverty. This is going to be something that we're going to be speaking about because a lot of times, we'll talk about the emotional aspects of poverty and how people feel, but we really don't talk about the science of it. And the science is pretty damning, right? So let's get into it. So I have a video that I'm going to be sharing with you. And this is going to break us in to this conversation about the science of poverty. Now, I'm going to give you a trigger warning. It's nothing violent. Well, violent as far as the physical violence against person to person. But poverty is violence. I will say that. It's going to show deep poverty. And if that's triggering for you, then you may want to look away. I just want to make sure that I'm accommodating to my sensitive viewers. But this is the real United States that some people turn their eyes away from because they don't want to be in touch with that reality. And this is capitalism and how it affects us. So we're going to get into it. So let me share my screen. And this is a 7-minute video, just letting you guys know the duration of this video. And I don't know if I'm going to share the entire thing, but I want you guys to get the real gist of it. Okay. So this is a TikTok video, and this is in Bella Glade, Florida, Ron DeSantis state. I'm gonna take the banner down just so that everybody can see the full video. And so that's a little. Hang on, let me see if I can enlarge this just a little bit, just so it looks a little bit bigger. I wonder how it looks on stream. Does it look better? It doesn't even change. Ah, hell. Oh well. Doesn't matter. Okay. So let's go. By the way, the captions on it says it's 2023, not 1903. Florida, unacceptable. $800 a month on rent.
How y'all doing, man? We're in the building. Sewage out, piping outside, electrical still on the outside, man. These third world. What you say, Martin Luther King said though? So where you taking us at though? What's this here? This raw sewage right there somewhere. What this part of the building? This the bathroom? Yeah, the 5-star shit. It's 5-star shit. You got going in there and get great footage. You bullshit. No bullshit, man. Got water on the floor. Which one of the worst? Damn, that bitch leaking. On the ceiling. That's the shit. That's the toilet from the one above that's leaking down.
So just to give you guys a bit of thoughts on that, like if you have the pipe from your toilet drain that's leaking and people get sick, well, people who are impoverished are likely to get sicker more often, right? Let's continue. Sorry, it's buffering. Hang on. Let me refresh. 111.
You got it simple. Which one of the worst? Damn, that bitch leaking. On the ceiling. That's the shit. That's the toilet from the one above that's leaking down. Yes, sir. How you doing today, miss?
Hey,
Yes, man. Hold on. How much rent is here? 800. 800 to live here? What the fuck? And how many apartments it is on each floor? 15 apartments on each. Now it's over 40. It's 45 apartments in this building. This one of the rooms. Could you show us how they? Oh, this the kitchen. Oh, you guys share a kitchen. So each floor have how many kitchens? Each floor got, we just showing the kitchen. So you guys, so this the kitchen.
Showing the food, Chuck.
Yeah, okay, so this the kitchen for the building. How many people share the kitchen? Everybody on the floor share the one kitchen?
Okay, move on over.
Just the bathroom on the second floor?
Put the bed back in off. Move.
Ooh,
Look,
shit.
y'all. Damn. Ooh.
Spill.
I want to clean, y'all.
How y'all doing?
Shit on.
Yes, sir. Oh my
That's
God.
the master bathroom.
It's the master bathroom?
Yeah, that's the big one.
Man, that's fucking mold and shit. The fuck is he talking about a master? What the fuck? We ain't living like this in Belgrade. It's 2023. Damn. And it's a kitchen on each floor?
Yeah. Okay, come on, y'all.
I ain't see the kitchen. Yeah, we seen this kitchen. I ain't see the kitchen on the last floor. Damn. It's,
This the rat man right here. This the rat man. Look, his ass on camera.
he the maintenance man, he the business
Yeah, he the
man.
maintenance man.
You the, hey, how you doing? Excuse me, sir. You're the rent man. You the rent man. You property management.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How do you feel? Do you feel it's adequate enough living here? Like, do you think it's okay that these people live in these conditions?
Oh, yeah. Nobody. I'm not too much junkie coming sit down this smoking shit right there, clean up every day.
What you say? You got a junkie who sits on the
Sit down right there smoking shit, and then get boom, keep sweeping, clean up.
So you say a junkie sit down there every day, he's smoking shit, and you pay him to clean up?
I do, myself. Junkie just come and miss.
Oh, you clean up and junkies come and just fuck the
Make mess.
make mess on the property.
I don't want to put police on the junkie yet.
You don't want to put police on the owners because this is not adequate enough for you guys to be living? Do you feel as if this is close to living back in your neighbor, your home country? Do you think this is the American dream?
Yeah, the American dream, yeah.
Damn, way. They got these people fucked up. What happened, cuz? What you say? That's the master. This the biggest one of the bathrooms. What he said?
Somebody dead in here. We gonna get this on channel 12 today.
You say that again?
Say somebody dead in here. We gonna get this on channel 12.
Man, we ain't living like this, cuz. This how we living in 2023?
Unfortunately, yeah. A lot of people are living like that in 2023. They chose that lifestyle. That's their choice. And the funny part is there got some people who will look at somebody as homeless and say, get a job, get a place to live. Crazy part is a lot of these people probably already have a job and they have a place to live. Is that what you're willing to accept? Is for our people to only be able to afford places like that? See, my problem isn't just that people need adequate housing, but the emphasis on the word adequate. That is not adequate. Somebody said earlier it looks like a prison. Let me look. Somebody said that it looks like a prison. I want to make sure. You see. Somebody said it looks. Oh yeah, Hobo Rudy said looks like jail. Yeah, and that's the crazy part is that people will sit and say, "Oh, well, they chose that." Tony Banana says no prisons are actually nicer than these. Remember, when I said that the fulfillment of capitalism is slavery? A lot of times people think I'm BSing when it comes to saying that. No, I'm not. I did the math. If he has 100% occupancy, 45 units, $800 a month each, that's $36,000 a year. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's 36,000 a month. Yeah, $800 a month times 45 units per month is $36,000 a month, right? Let me see. Times 12 months in a year, $432,000. So if you're getting $800 a month, right, and you're getting 45 units, $800 a month each month, that's $36,000 you're getting per month. And then 36,000 times 12 is 432,000. This man is getting damn near $500,000 a year off of the backs of poor people, and they're living in squalor. Y'all wonder why we say Mal was right. Black Ronin, perfect. Can't choose when you don't have a choice. There's a word for it. It's called duress. In fact, let me get up the definition just so that people know what it means. All right. So I'm gonna share my screen because a lot of people are living in duress and they don't know the word for it, but they know that they don't like it. They don't choose it. It's not really a choice. Duress, a noun that says threats, violence, constraints, or other action brought to bear on someone to do something against their will or better judgment. So in law, it is constraint illegally exercised to force someone to perform an act. In archaic, it says forcible restraint or imprisonment. The synonyms are coercion, compulsion, force, pressure, intimidation. We are coerced, compulsed, under compulsion, forced, pressured, and intimidated to stay in these conditions, or else someone will say, well, you just have to live out on the street. We are coerced, under compulsion, forced, under pressure, and intimidated because if you don't do what we say, then you starve. We are intimidated, pressured, forced, under compulsion, and coerced because if you don't do what we say, you don't have health care. Police will violate your rights, and if you express your rights that they should be followed by law enforcement, well, you face death. So we have to allow our rights to be violated or die. And people will probably say, well, why didn't they just comply? Because there was no need to comply with something unlawful. And so a person expressing their constitutional rights should be enough. But it doesn't happen. It happens for some people, especially of a different melanin amount. But for the rest of us that are melanin abundant, no. So we're constantly under coercion, compulsion, force, pressure, and intimidation. And that's how it works. It's just like with people who have to work at these jobs that pay a starvation wage. They are under coercion, compulsion, force, pressure, or intimidation. That's how it works. Because we don't want to be out on the streets, or because we don't want to starve, or because we don't want to not have health care, because we're constantly under coercion, compulsion, force, pressure, intimidation, also known as duress. We are under duress every single point in our lives. That is the mode of capitalism. It is using duress in order to extract whatever it can out of a person so that it can make more profit. That is the goal of capitalism. Guess what? Slaves were under duress. They were under compulsion, intimidation, coercion in order to perform, in order to do what the master wanted them to do, so that they would actually produce more for the slave master, and the slave master did not have to pay them a living wage. That's what it is. Many of you are under duress right now. Many of us are under duress from landlords and employers. Many of us are under duress from the law enforcement agencies within this country. The fulfillment of capitalism is chattel slavery. Now, I said we're going to get into the science about it, behind it. And I'm going to show this video by Jessica Sharp, and she gives a TED Talk titled "The Brain on Poverty." So this is going to be interesting. And I want you guys to listen closely to this, because this is going to be interesting. Now, I wish that she connected it all to capitalism, but nobody's perfect. Rome wasn't built in a day. But you all know that it's connected to capitalism, which I'm happy about. But we're going to see the cogs and how they work. So let's go.
So I'm going to tell you a story of three brothers: Fred, Trevor, and Damien. Fred, the eldest and the shortest of the three, is hardworking, ambitious, intelligent. He has high expectations for himself and for those around him. Trevor, the middle, is social and very loyal, but he's also addicted. He began a relationship with drugs and alcohol that he's never really been able to end, and that has affected much of his life. Damien, the baby, and the tallest of the three, is athletic, charismatic, incredibly generous, and he's good looking, so he's the one that all the girls loved. The three of them grew up in pretty bad poverty in a small town in Alabama. So what this looked like for them is that most of the time, their parents had the ability to pay the bills, keep the lights on. Most of the time, they had the ability to put food on the table. but they never got new school supplies, new clothes for school. They rarely went to the dentist or to the doctor. They never went on family vacations. Many of these things felt like luxuries to this family.
By the way, that's my family. It's like, you know, we barely scrape by with getting the rent paid, barely scrape by with getting the electric paid, barely scrape by and getting transportation to and from either school or work. Vacations, what the hell is that? We don't know because we never go on vacation. And by the way, some of y'all know the only time that you actually have really good times where things actually feel like life is worth living, especially in the states that you're in, is when tax return season comes and y'all get that check. Because then it's like, oh snap, I just came into some money. Let's go out to eat. Because you don't get to do it that often. So you guys actually go out to eat. Really actually go out to eat. Because sit down at a restaurant to actually pick what you want because you got your tax return. Right? Y'all know what that feels like, right? You know what it's like when you face an emergency and you have to take some money out of your rent check in order to face that emergency, or you wouldn't be able to get to work, or you wouldn't be able to do what you need to do. And then comes time for you to pay your rent and they don't accept partial payments. So guess what? You might get on the eviction notice and then you have to pay extra, not just for the late fees, but also the attorney's fees in order to stop the eviction. So you're out of even more money. And then on top of that, you can't even make more hours because your boss doesn't give you more hours. So what you have to do, you have to pick up a second job in order to make up for it. But now even more time is taken away from your family and even yourself and things you want to do. I know because I'm living it. I know y'all because I am y'all. I am you. Or you have to take that money out of, instead of, being partial on your rent, you have your rent paid, but your lights may be off for a couple days. You know what it's like. Or when the lights go out in your neighborhood and you're asking your neighbor, did your lights go out too? Because you're trying to make sure that it wasn't just you and that your lights got cut off. Y'all know, when there's a power outage, you're wondering, did I pay my light bill? That's the first thing you think of. That's what living in poverty is. Did I pay my light bill? People who don't live in poverty, that's not the first thing they think of. When the power goes out, it's like, oh snap, we got a power outage. Okay, let's turn on the generator. For the rest of us, it's like, wait, did you pay the light bill? I think I did. I don't know. Let's continue.
Both of their parents dropped out of school around the middle school level, and both had grown up in generational poverty. And so much of this seemed normal to them, and they didn't expect anything different or better for themselves, and certainly not for the boys. A UN official has recently said that Alabama has the worst poverty in our developed world. The brothers knew that they wanted more.
Wait. Let's go. Let's go back on that. Hang on. What'd she say about Alabama?
Worst poverty in our developed world.
Alabama has the worst poverty in the developed world. America's the greatest country in the world. Oh gosh. In the world. In the world. Shall we continue? Let's continue.
The brothers knew that they wanted more. They knew that they wanted something different. So think
All do.
about your family, your friends, your colleagues. We all know people who are represented in one or more of these stories.
Yes.
Think about yourself. We all know people who are hardworking.
Hold on. She said we all know that somebody who's represented the story. Would that mean that it's a choice then? Hang on. Would that mean it's a choice? Or would that mean it's systemic? So why do we blame individual people for a systemic problem? I mean, look, if your master cylinder is broken, how are you going to blame the person that's driving the car for the master cylinder being broken, especially when you don't own the car? You don't own the car, but you're driving it, and the master cylinder is broken. You're going to blame the driver? The driver can't do the job of the master cylinder. It's the system that needs to be fixed or replaced. If the engine is shot, no matter what the driver does, the car ain't going nowhere. So why do we blame individuals for a systemic problem? Doesn't make sense now, does it? Actually, it sounds like victim blaming. But that's a whole nother topic of conversation that we need to get into.
Working and ambitious. For better or for worse, we all know people who are addicted. And we all know people who are charismatic and good looking. And poverty, well, that's part of America's story.
Mm-hmm.
This story matters to me because one of those three men is my dad. The other two are my uncles, and their parents are my paternal grandparents. Who do you think my dad is? Why? So I'm going to tell you something that you probably know but don't often think about. The effects of poverty start in the womb. So we already know that when pregnant moms are addicted to drugs or alcohol, their babies enter the world addicted to that same substance. Well, poverty and chronic stress have a similar effect and similar relationship between pregnant mom and baby. And when moms are living in poverty and experiencing chronic stress, they have babies who enter the world with little brains and little bodies that are already compromised.
So we're doomed the moment we're born. We're doomed before we're even born. If poverty is that bad, why not end it? Did I make a choice that my parents lived in poverty? Did I make the choice for it to affect my brain the way it did when I was still in the womb? Very interesting. When I said on my channel, it's not your fault, I meant it.
And while their little bodies will catch up to their higher income peers more quickly, their brains take a little bit more work. All of us enter the world with an undeveloped brain. The first 3 years of life are critical to brain development because about 80 to 85% of our brain develops during that time. There's a great book by Eric Jensen called Teaching with Poverty in Mind. And he talks about the importance of the attachment formed between parent and child. And he tells us that the quality of that first relationship will predict the quality of future relationships. He also reminds us that a parent essentially serves as a child's first teacher. So that first relationship is important in teaching children things like emotional regulation, independence, and curiosity. We also know that low-income children are read fewer books to, and so they know fewer words. They're also less likely to attend a high-quality pre-K or childcare facility, and so most of them will start off school academically behind. And for many of those students, they won't ever reach the same level as their higher income peers. So as they continue to develop and go throughout school, we know that low-income children are more likely to act out, to behave impulsively, and are more likely to lack coping skills.
Those of you who grew up in poverty, you had that one classmate that always got suspended, always got detention because of how they would act out, how they basically couldn't regulate their emotions, especially if you went to a school in the hood, right? You always had that one classmate, or maybe you were that classmate that always was in detention or always got suspension. Whether it was ISS or out of school suspension, you always got suspended, right? You were always in trouble, always in the dean's office, always in the principal's office. Why? Why was it? Was it just because, oh, you're just not doing good enough? You're just not applying yourself enough? What's going on at home? What's going on mentally? And a lot of times, guess what? They don't apply this, especially to those of us who live in poverty. The rich schools, they get it. The schools in maybe the upper middle class neighborhoods, maybe some of the public schools, but mostly the charter schools and the private schools, they get all the bells and whistles. But what about you? You didn't get that. I didn't get that. And so, guess what? You got punished for things that happen outside of your control. And you always get punished for things that are outside of your control. Because they measure you by the standards of somebody that does not live in poverty. They measure you by the standards that somebody that does not live under duress. They measure you by someone that's brains have developed in a more normal functioning manner because they weren't born into poverty. Their parents didn't have to deal with it, so it didn't affect you in the womb. You didn't have it affecting your early childhood. And so guess what? They're measuring you by the standards of someone in an environment that you do not you're not in. That's the thing. Children should be like this. But guess what? They're not in the same environment. So why are you measuring them against people who are not in that environment? Why are you measuring a white kid that's born into a more higher socioeconomic status, and then you're trying to make a black kid that's born into poverty and trying to measure him according to that socioeconomic status to the white kid that is in a better status, or the brown kid? Why are you doing that? Why are you measuring the poor little white kid against the socioeconomic status to the upper class white kid? Why are you doing that? This is how they should be. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Sorry, I didn't mean to curse, but and here's the problem. Because then they say, well, it's the parent's fault. But guess what she just said earlier? Generational poverty. If wealth is generational, poverty is also generational as well. And so this individualistic idea also pushes us to even apply that to our children. Because we say, this person who is in an upper middle class area does it this way, and they're able to achieve at it. Why can't you? And the child can't tell you why. They don't know. They have no idea. Why? Because their brains are even underdeveloped than even the same kid at the same age, but in a different socioeconomic status. So how do we change it? It's an easy answer. The crazy part is people will make it more complex than what it is. People will say, oh, well, it's not that easy. It's complex. No, the hell it is not. Y'all just too greedy to change it. Let me calm down. Let's continue.
They also develop less gray matter in the frontal part of their brain, and that part of the brain controls cognitive function, so things problem solving, planning, organizing, and focusing. And all of those effects will follow a young person into adulthood. And for adults who live in poverty, many of them are experiencing chronic stress. So a little bit of stress is actually good for our brains and our bodies. But when stress becomes consistent and lasts over an extended period of time, it becomes chronic or toxic stress. That chronic stress sets up a process in our bodies that does a few things, but among one is that it increases our levels of cortisol, a hormone in our body, to a level that our brains and body really can't manage or maintain. And that increased level of cortisol decreases our ability to fight infections, is linked to weight gain, diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and early death. So living in poverty can literally kill us.
When we talk about nationalizing healthcare, what does that mean? That means also fighting against the conditions that poverty also help cause. Why do Black people have more onset heart disease and diabetes? Could poverty be part of the issue? Could that be it? Not just access to healthy food, but could poverty also be contributing to that? Higher cortisol levels within us, which is a stress hormone that causes us to hold on to fat, which causes us to have more debilitating diseases. What could that also be an issue? Because our body immediately is constantly in fight or flight mode. If our body is constantly in fight or flight mode, guess what? You hold on to things, stress, weight gain, things like that. And so, guess what? Who's getting sick more? During the pandemic, who are the people who are the most affected? So, poverty is literally killing people. I don't care who clips this and plays this. They can call me dumb, stupid, uneducated, whatever. But I'm going to make a statement. Capitalism is genocide because it depends on an impoverished masses in order to keep a small minority wealthy. So it is literally genocide to the to the majority. It's genocide. It's literally killing us. Let's continue.
In addition to that, low-income adults are more likely to be unemployed, underemployed, and have to rely on social service systems. So my grandparents had to use what is now called SNAP, what used to be called food stamps, in order to frequently put food on the table for the boys. So I know what some of you in the room may be thinking. Whew, that sounds bad. Thank goodness that didn't have anything to do with me. Well, the thing is, poverty affects every single one of us, even if we don't think it does. And we all have a place in the solution. And I've heard all the reasons and excuses why we don't have a place in the solution. You know, I've heard people say that it's the responsibility of the parent to parent their child. I've heard people say that when children are academically behind, it's the responsibility of the teachers and the school staff to raise them up academically. And finally, I've heard people just say that this isn't their problem. So let's think about parents for a second. Think about your parents. If you're a parent, think about yourself as a parent. Parents are humans, right? So the reality is they all do things that they wish they would have done differently or would have done better. And all of those effects of poverty I mentioned can absolutely impact and affect someone's ability to be a parent. And the reality is parents aren't always going to do what we think they should do or meet our expectations. So let's think about teachers. Gosh, teachers do a lot of things, right? They're hired to provide academic content and support students, but they do a lot more than that, particularly teachers of low-income students. You know, they're part nurse, part mentor, part disciplinarian. Many of them are providing school supplies and potentially food out of their own budget. And it's not our responsibility to put more burden on them, but instead, it's our responsibility to ask them how we can support them in the work that they're already doing. So finally, I've heard people say it's just not their problem, right? So all of those social support systems that I previously mentioned, again, what SNAP used to be called food stamps that my grandparents had to utilize, TANF that used to be called welfare, our tax dollars are going to pay for that. So we are financially invested in poverty. And as we lift some of our neighbors out of poverty, some of those funds that are currently being diverted to social service systems can be diverted to other things, you know, things you care about. Maybe it's transportation or education or veterans issues. But again, as we lift people up, we can divert some of those funds. So
If a parent is in poverty, it's kind of hard to teach your own children if you have to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week because you don't have time. Can't do it. Right? Even then, the stressors of poverty on top of it make it very difficult. So it's a awful feedback loop where you can't teach your children because you're in poverty, so therefore you have to send your kids to a school. But then those kids who go to those schools, those underfunded schools, because guess what? Public schools are funded through property taxes, and the lower the property taxes in a given area where it's more lower income, that means the less income that that school has, then guess what? Then those kids are actually going to be underserved. So if those kids are underserved, well, then they get a lower grade of education. And so guess what? Then they end up being impoverished themselves. And then they end up having kids, and then they end up being impoverished and can't teach their kids. And so it goes on and on and on. And then you have the people who are like, well, why do I care? A well-educated people is deeply important for even your survival in this country. A well-educated populace is integral for your survival because some of these kids in these impoverished areas may be the ones that could save your life, may be the ones that make your life better because their brains are able to develop and go and do things that maybe, just maybe, you haven't been able to think of. But the problem is, you're sitting here thinking, what good is it of me? Everybody wants to talk about individual responsibility, but nobody wants to talk about community responsibility. How we all have an obligation to lift one another up. And people want to talk about socialism. Guess what? That's what it is. Socialism, communism, it's about lifting each other up. Community responsibility. That means all schools being well funded. That means ending poverty systemically. This means ending white supremacy. Because once you do that, then what happens? You make them catch up better. and then add those reparations, then boom, that's what happens. But what's behind it? Say it with me, everybody. Capitalism. So
again, we're all affected by poverty, and we all have a place in the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with empathy. Empathy. So Dr. Brene Brown, who's a social worker and storyteller, describes empathy as feeling with people. And while I can't always connect to one specific experience, I can connect to the feeling. You know, I don't know what it's like to be a mom living in poverty, but I do know what it's like to want a child to be happy and to be loved and to be safe. That feeling I can connect to. And empathy requires two things. First, it requires us to put judgment aside, because empathy and judgment can't live together. So in order for us to feel with people, it requires us to put judgment in a corner. Next, it requires perspective taking. It requires us to take the perspective of another and think about what life is like in their shoes, again, in order to feel with them. And empathy isn't just a bunch of happy feelings, right? There's some action associated with empathy. So I know we've all seen the Facebook ad, the mailer, the commercial for XYZ nonprofit, and they need your time and they need your money. And some of them are asking you for both. And I know that there are some of you in the room that are giving your time or your money, and some of you are giving both. But I know that there are some of you that aren't. And for those of you that are, I'd first like to say thank you. But I'd like to ask you, could you be doing more? Could you be bringing people alongside of you in the work that you're doing with these nonprofits? Could you be giving more of your resources? And for those of you that aren't, I'd like to ask you why you're not.
My thing, though, is that when it comes to the nonprofit industrial complex, they can be nefarious too, because they actually are more about just raising the funds and paying their executives top dollar than actually helping people. So I would say that number one, educate yourselves about the nonprofits, but at the same time, focus more on mutual aid, because that can actually help. Because unfortunately, these nonprofits are trying to keep us, trying to raise awareness and solutions within a system that does not want awareness and solutions to happen. So that's the only thing that I would push back I would give on her regarding that. But that's part of the science about poverty, right? Is that it underdevelops us and it keeps us away from actually being the best version of ourselves. And if we can't be the best version of ourselves collectively, that means society is not being the best version of itself. I'm going to go to the comments really quick, and I'm going to continue on this. I'm not actually finished with this subject, but Sweaty Fairy says, I'm never going to let my kids go hungry or cold. Don't know how I'll pull it off, but I'm taking all of this into my career. Thing is that we shouldn't have to be worried about how we're going to do it. That's the problem with poverty, is that we're wondering how we're going to do it. That should never be a worry, not in this society. LF Antwriter says, why aren't all families rich and poor on a good accounting system like SNAP? Why did we turn food into a competitive market, like the result of which is malnutrition? Capitalism. Easy, capitalism. Because they need people in order to make more profits. They have to increase the amount of people who can't afford it, so that people will be under duress to try to afford it. Yeah, capitalism. Yes, absolutely. It's funny how some people forget that love thy neighbor, but it's true. Joseph Best says people need to know that we are being robbed by our government. If more people are aware of the illusion of the two-party system over, and real change can occur. Yeah. Alex says public programs like housing and education should be the pride of a society. Absolutely. I would be proud of my society if I can say, oh, yeah, we don't have homelessness. What's that? Homelessness? People sleeping out in the streets against their will? That's crazy. People should not go hungry. I'm of the opinion that education should be free across the board. I think that you should be able to get your PhD for free. And by free, I mean free at the point of service. See what I mean? Zero Joshua says, within every child's mind is our infinite potential, the most valuable resource we have, our future. Absolutely. It says Yep Access school system is also heavily set up to whitewash history and mold people into unquestioning, obedient workers, wage slaves. That's a whole nother conversation, but it's also an absolutely necessary conversation to have. Eric Gray says Jaybe giving me more material for my financial literacy class. Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Appreciate it. Lavender Rose loves women. Says the capitalists really know how to use the fear of poverty to control us. This right here, this comment right here, that's what it is. Fear to control you. And if you get rid of that source of fear, can they control you? Can they control you if you don't have a fear of being homeless? Can they control you if you don't have a fear of being hungry? Can they control you if you don't have a fear of not having health care? Can they control you if you don't have a fear of law enforcement infringing upon your rights? Can they control you? Can you be controlled? Can you be controlled if you have all those things covered, and even can you be controlled if you're working and you're also part owner of the workplace and you have a democratic say? If you're a worker owner, do you have that fear of being fired? Especially if you're just doing your job the way it should be done. And then if you express your concerns, it can be dealt with democratically. Can you be in fear? Not really. No. That is what freedom means. I'll say it once and I'll say it again. A friend of mine told me this years ago. He said, true freedom means you do not encroach upon the rights of others. And once we start to realize that housing, food, transportation, utilities, all these different things are a right, once we start to realize that they are intrinsically a right, then even the issue of money will not be encroaching upon that freedom. Thanks, Lavender Rose. Appreciate it. LF says you should look up how many homeless people have jobs. 40%. Yeah. You're saying some good stuff. I'm not sure if you're new to the channel. but welcome home. You're saying some pretty awesome stuff. Thank you. Welcome. Glad to have you. I'm not sure if you've been here for a while, but you fit in. Thanks for the great comments, LF. Appreciate it. Stewart says, under capitalism, food and housing are produced first and foremost for profit. Their utility is secondary. This is why apartments are sitting empty and food is left to spoil. Yeah, because it's built on greed and not need. That's what it is. Let me check Rockfin. All right. Let me refresh that because I don't know. I don't want to miss any comments on Rockfin. Let's go to this article. Actually, you know what? Yeah. Because I don't want to run away from time. So a lot of times people go, well, what's the solution, right? And one of the things that I talk about is housing first, right? And a housing first model means that if people aren't under duress when it comes to their housing, that's just one aspect that people don't have as much duress in, right? And if they don't have that duress, then guess what? They actually can grow and make better choices. All right. So I'm going to go to this first. Actually, let's share the screen. Let me see. Yeah. So this is from the Homeless Services Network of Central Florida. This is in my area. And they give an explanation of what is housing first. What is housing first? Immediate access to housing with no readiness conditions, participant choice, and self-determination. Recovery is possible, individualized and person-centered supports. Social and community integration. Housing first is a homeless assistance approach that prioritizes providing permanent housing to people experiencing homelessness, thus ending their homelessness and serving as a platform from which they can pursue personal goals and improve their quality of life. This approach is guided by the belief that people need basic necessities like food and a place to live before attending to anything less critical, such as getting a job, budgeting properly, or attending to substance use issues. Additionally, housing first is based on the theory that individual choice is valuable in housing selection and supportive service participation, and not exercising that choice is likely to make a client more successful in remaining housed and improving their life. So a lot of times with housing first models is a lot of times what people will do is they'll say, well, this person needs to get past drugs first, or this person needs to get over their mental illness first before they can actually truly get housing. They have to perform this way to prove that they deserve housing. And it's like you're taking that deserving of housing and contingent it upon them fixing their mental health or fixing their substance abuse issue, when really you should flip it, give them housing, and then that could be a conduit for them to fix their substance abuse issue or or help them with their mental health issue. Because the thing is, a lot of times, a lot of people who are homeless start getting into drugs once they're homeless, not the other way around, right? Some people, they actually start having more mental health issues once they're homeless, not the other way around. So guess what? Here's the thing. And people will say, well, JB, it's not that simple. My brother in Thor, my sister in Thor, it actually is that simple. Just give people housing. But it's like, oh, we can't do that. Why? Why can't we? 17 million vacant homes in the country. 17 million vacant homes. Wait, 16 or 17. Anyway, 10 plus million vacant homes in the country. And we're just under 600,000 people out in the streets, not counting the houses people that are sleeping on your couches or sleeping in motels and motels, not counting them. But we literally have enough houses to home everybody. And here's the crazy part that boggles my mind. People are like, well, we need to build affordable housing. No, we don't. We have the housing. We have it. We have it. We have it. Why aren't we actually taking those houses and just putting people in them? Because they want to make more money off of it. Because profit is the motive. That's why they don't want to put people in the housing that's presently there. Because they don't want people who don't have the money to move into that housing. Because they don't think housing is a right. They want to designate this type of housing for them. All right, if you can't afford housing, okay, you go to this low income housing and you stay over there, out of sight, out of mind, so we can make the rest of we can make our bag over here. When in reality, housing is a human right. Our housing stock is such that we have more than enough housing for everyone in this country. And so when I say we should just give them housing, people look at me like I'm crazy. Because they think, oh, well, JB, you're just oversimplifying the problem. No, you're overcomplicating the problem. That's what you're doing. You're saying that we just can't give them housing. If you're sleeping on somebody's couch, I don't care if you're a kid that had to move back into your parents' house and you're living in your old room, you are homeless because you did not choose to stay there. You're only staying there because you need to, because you can't afford to be on your own. You're homeless. I don't care if it's still your old room. You're homeless. You're sleeping on the couch. You're homeless. You're sleeping in a motel. You're homeless. If you're not choosing that, if you're there under duress, let's get that word into our mind, people, duress. If you're under duress, guess what? You're homeless. And so because of that, people need housing. So I love when people go, oh, we just need to build more affordable housing. By the way, what is affordable? The ultimate affordability for anyone is free. You telling me that you have all these billionaires with all this stolen wealth, and you mean to tell me that we're just going to sit here and let them continuously have all that stolen wealth while people out here sleeping on the streets? Is that right? You want to talk about simplifying the problem? You're overcomplicating it by allowing these megalomaniacs to hoard all this wealth while you got people sleeping out on the streets or sleeping in your living room. No. No, you're not going to do that. Not with people sleeping on the streets. Not in this country. That's stupid. And so when people talk about what are we going to do? How are we got, who's going to pay for it? You! You're going to pay for it. If you're wealthy, if you're rich, well, guess what? Prepare for having your the stolen wealth seized. Look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat stuff. I've been in RBN too long to sugarcoat stuff. If you're wealthy, if you're ultra rich, and guess what? You stole that wealth. Guess what? Robin Hood, right? Because the thing is that all that wealth that you stole, you do not deserve. All that wealth that you stole, you do not. It's not yours. It's not yours. So why do you have it? No. No. No, 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 no. All those LGBTQ kids that were kicked out of their homes and now they're sleeping out in the streets and they actually have to perform sex work under duress in order to be able to live, in order to be able to eat, in order to be able to survive. And you mean to tell me that you're not willing to give them housing? And guess what? I don't care if somebody's on drugs. We're all on drugs. I just had tea. I just had drugs in front of you. It's called caffeine. That's right. Yes. Did you have caffeine? Did you have a drink last night? You just had drugs. So guess what? Everybody's on drugs in some way, shape, or form. We all use mind-altering substances. So if you want to talk about, oh, well, they're on drugs, guess what? So are you. So do you deserve housing? And then a lot of us, we all have mental illnesses because of poverty. Well, guess what? If you want to get rid of mental illness, then I guess it would be best to get rid of poverty to slow the onset of mental illness. Did you guys subscribe yet? Go ahead, hit the red box. Go ahead, hit it for me. But this is why I say like the stream, because messages like this need to get out there because a lot of people aren't willing to talk about this. No, my family helped build this country, so we're gonna make it the way we want it to be. I'm sorry, and I've actually been seeing your comments in the chat, and here's the thing: you're talking about leaving this country. Number one, we don't have the money. Number two, why should we have to leave a country that we helped build? No. I'm sorry. The thing is that you can talk about leaving if that's what you want to do, then fine. But the thing is that we need to fight because here's the thing: there's some people who just can't do it. And so for those people and for ourselves, it behooves us. Because guess what? Guess what happens if we leave this country? Guess who's going to follow and then try to extract our resources from us? This same country. So it's really within our duty to actually change it so that it stops being a stain and a perpetrator for the rest of the world. And you know what? No, that's not loser mentality. It's not. Because fighting against your oppressor is actually a winner mentality because you're not willing to say, you know what? I'm sorry. I give up. I'm going to go bye. No. We're fighting. We're going up against it. Fighting against your oppressor is actually a winning mentality. Because if you're saying that's a losing mentality, you're calling Malcolm X a loser. You're calling Fred Hampton a loser. You're calling Angela Davis a loser. You're calling Assata Shakur a loser. That's what you're calling. You're calling these people losers. The people who actually helped end slavery, you're calling them losers because they actually, instead of just leaving, they actually fought in order to gain things for the country. Fine. But guess what? Then I at least help the later generation to realize the power that they have so that change actually happens. But guess what? It is not a loser mentality. And the fact that you're actually saying that is actually insulting to RBN. I'm sorry, you just insulted all of us because we're literally working to change this country. And why are you here? Why? Because you're sitting here trying to tell us that we shouldn't change, we should just leave. Now, if some people want to leave, that's okay, fine. But the thing is that you're poo-pooing us for saying that we should change our country and work to obviously change it. Stop insulting us like that. Stop doing that. If that's your choice, then fine. But we're working to change it. And my next person I'll be talking about, you're insulting her too. Don't do that. Because if it weren't for these losers, you wouldn't be in the place that you're in right now. You'd still be picking cotton and sugar if it wasn't for those losers. So let's stop with that. Stop insulting your ancestors in Black History Month of all times. Anyway, back to it. See, Housing First, different from other approaches, says Housing First does not require people experiencing homelessness to address all of their problems, including behavioral health problems, or to graduate through a series of service programs before they can access housing. Housing First does not mandate participation in services either before obtaining housing or in order to retain housing. The Housing First approach views housing as the foundation for life improving and enables access to permanent housing without prerequisites or conditions beyond those of a typical renter. Supportive services are also offered to support people with housing stability and individual well-being. But participation is not required, as services have been found to be more effective when a person chooses to engage. Other approaches do make such requirements in order for a person to obtain and retain housing. So the thing is that people have to be able to have that base first. You can't expect somebody to fix something if they don't have a foundation to fix it on. It's uneven. It doesn't work out. So you have to engage a foundation. That foundation is actually having housing so that people are able to do that. So this link is also in the description below. And so, yeah, so that's one of the things. And one of the links that I want to share, I shared it before, and I want to share it again, is that there are many people who are going through houselessness in this country. Some people, they may be sleeping on, on their couch or something like that. And Strive Pensacola is a wonderful resource. Let me share my screen because this actually Strive Pensacola actually helps people who are trans and queer who may be, homeless here in Florida. I've had Indigo Let on. Indigo was in the chat earlier. So Indigo, if you're watching, shout out to you. But they are a mutual aid organization that actually helps house people, especially who are transgender. And so that is one option that you have. And here's another one. And this is a shout out to Nick as well. So that's for Strive. And that's also linked in the description. That's one place that you can find solutions for people. And then here's another one. and then I'll be moving on to my Black History Month special focus. And this one is to Casey Tennants. Casey Tennants is also who Nick of RBN is also part of. And so Casey Tennants is also an association. And it says Casey Tennants organizes to ensure that everyone in Kansas City has a safe, accessible, and truly affordable home. And so make sure that if you guys want to as well support these different types of organizations, then make sure to, focus on these organizations, especially if you're saying, you know what, I'm done with politics and I don't want to give anything more to politicians. Well, here's a way to divert your money. These mutual aid organizations that are literally helping people on the ground to either get housing or to stay housed. That's what you can do. That is an answer for what can be done, So, yeah. So now let me go to my Black History Month focus. All right, people, let's get on it. So let's take this down. Let's see. Nubian X says this is what needs to be talked about more often and more deeply in the public media as long-term. I can't talk today. Neglected and overdue issue that's an alarmingly fast-growing number of Americans are experiencing. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me also look at the super chats. I like some of these comments too. John Chaos says Gabriel Mate, his book goes into this extensively. Yeah, I'm starting to look more into Dr. Gabor Mate, and he says some stuff that really just got me here. I'm like, man, I need to look more into him. Mark P. Pithikau says, I'm from Sweden. When I hear my friends say they'd rather live in the U.S. than Russia, really? I don't say which is better or worse, but I'm sure they don't know the real conditions. Propagandized. Absolutely. A lot of times people are brainwashed. Like, from what I found out, women actually have pro-choice institutionally in Russia. They've had it for decades. So they don't have to worry about things like that. Of course, there are some things that aren't so good. But as far as it being more advanced in the United States, yeah, I mean, they have universal health care. So they have some things that we don't. Eric Gray says, as a teacher, if students don't trust me, they will not learn from me. It's always awkward, embarrassing for me to see other teachers engaging in classist behavior. Oh, that's another big one. Teachers engaging in classist behavior, that is, especially, if they subscribe to the individualist mindset. Yeah. But that's a whole nother thing. Thank you so much for that, Eric. And then Mark the Gal says, have to go to bed now, 8:15 p.m. here, and have to be up early tomorrow. Always brilliant streams. 99. Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Okay. So the next one we are going to be talking about is Marsha. Absolutely. This is what we're getting into. This is the first Jaybe show of Black History Month. So we're going to be talking about the illustrious, the badass Marsha P Johnson. So we're going to be getting into it. As a queer person myself, I am trying to not only engage with knowing more about our history, but also that intersectionality, right? And someone like Marsha P. Johnson was a trans Black woman. And so there's intersections that are there that some of us just can't speak to. I don't know what it's like to be trans, and I don't know what it's like to be a woman. So therefore, that's some intersections that I'm just not privy to. But I'm here to learn, right? And so when looking at people like Marsha P. Johnson and you look at her history, you realize how much of a badass she really was. She was a bad mama jamma. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So let's go. All right. Let me get rid of that so I have more space. All right. Let's go to the article and then I will get into the video. So, and I also want you to think about poverty, the subject that I talked about earlier. And we're going to apply this to Marsha P. Johnson too. So, make sure this is big enough. And this is out of Women in the American Story. And this is about life story Marsha P. Johnson. She was born in 1945. So she still would have been alive today if her death hadn't happened in 1992. So, and this it hangs on why we have Pride Parade too. Actual true Pride Parade. Anyway, let's start. Stop dropping down. Gosh, I'm trying to read. Okay. It says Marsha P. Johnson was born on August 24th, 1945 in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey, so it's cool. Make sure this is big enough. Okay. She was identified as male at birth. However, young Marsha enjoyed wearing clothing made for girls. As a boy sexually assaulted her, after a boy sexually assaulted her, she stopped wearing the clothes she loved and felt most comfortable in. After graduating high school, Marsha moved to New York City with only $15 and a bag of clothes. She began dressing almost exclusively in women's clothes and adopted the full name of Marsha P. Johnson. The P stood for Pay It No Mind. To her, it was a life motto and a response to question about her gender. Today, historians and former friends of Marsha describe her as a trans woman. During Marsha's lifetime, the term transgender was not commonly used. Marsha described herself as a gay person, a transvestite, and a drag queen. She used she, her pronouns. Marsha was part of a growing community of LGBTQ youth who sought acceptance in New York City. But in the 1950s and 1960s, LGBTQ people's rights were strictly limited. For example, dancing with a person of the same sex as well as cross-dressing was illegal. It was difficult for Marsha to find work. She realized that the fastest way to make money was to hustle. This meant working as a sex worker. The work, due to stigmatization of sex workers, was incredibly dangerous. Marsha was often alone with strangers in hotel rooms and cars. Sometimes the strangers were violent. On multiple occasions, clients pulled guns on Marsha. Once, she was even shot. Marsha spent most of her life without a permanent home. She slept in in hotel rooms, restaurants, and movie theaters. She sometimes lived with friends. Even when she found work waiting tables or performing drag shows, she still made most of her money as a sex worker. So she was homeless. Remember when I talked about poverty? She was homeless. So somebody like Marsha P Johnson was a victim of capitalism. Not long after arriving in New York, 17-year-old Marsha met 11-year-old Sylvia Rivera. Sylvia was a Puerto Rican trans woman who also lived in New York. The two became instant friends. Marsha taught Sylvia how to apply makeup, live on the street, and look out for trouble. She also encouraged Sylvia to love herself and her identity. Marsha enjoyed expressing herself through her appearance. Her lavish outfits were often made from thrift store finds, gifts from friends, and items she found on the street. She also created and wore elaborate crowns of fresh flowers, looking like a queen. Marsha's life drastically changed when she found herself near the Stonewall Inn in the early hours of June 28th, 1969. That night, police officers raided the gay bar. As the officers began to arrest people for violating various discriminatory laws, the patrons of the Stonewall fought back. While there are many conflicting stories about the uprising's start, it is clear that Marsha was on the front lines. In one account, she started the uprising by throwing a shot glass at a mirror. In another, she climbed a lamppost and dropped a heavy purse onto a police car, shattering the windshield. Young trans women like Marsha were particularly vocal that night because they felt they had nothing left to lose. Their rage was not just about the police, it was about the oppression and fear they felt every single day. Marsha P. Johnson was a badass. Darling, I want my gay rights too. Now, I think it's about the time the gay brothers and sisters got their rights, especially the women. Stonewall Uprising was an awakening for an entire generation of LGBTQ activists. Soon, Marsha was attending rallies, sit ins, and meetings of the newly formed Gay Liberation Front. She was excited about the work, but frustrated at how white gay men and lesbians dominated the conversation. She questioned where transgender people fit in. Trans people were more likely to be homeless and targeted by police. The movement did not appreciate the extent to which transgender youth needed help and support. In 1970, Sylvia came to Marsha with an idea. She wanted to protect young trans people living on the street by giving them a home. She asked Marsha to help her create a place where they could feel safe, unite, and fight for their rights. Marsha and Sylvia later formed the Street Transvestite Activist Revolutionaries, STAR. The first STAR house was in the back of an abandoned truck in Greenwich Village. Nearly 24 young people called that truck home. Sylvia and Marsha hustled every night to make sure their new family had breakfast each morning. One morning, they returned to the truck as it was pulling away with Star residents sleeping inside. Apparently, the truck was not abandoned after all. As they watched their kids jump from a moving truck, Marsha and Sylvia realized they needed a real home. They rented a dilapidated building with no electricity or running water. They fixed up the building and paid rent for nearly 8 months. When they could no longer pay, they were evicted. But the impact of Star had already been felt by many. So I'm going to continue. Um, I'm going to link this in the chat. And then I also have a video that I want to show. Let's go to this. Let me share my screen. And right.
People need to know who Marsha P Johnson is to be able to connect the present with the past. I first heard about Marsha P Johnson when I was about, I want to say 17. I learned about Stonewall and, you know, and the protests and how the summer of what, 69 changed everything going forward with queer rights. Learning about Marsha made me feel a little less alone in the world. She took it upon herself with other trans women to look out for the sex workers, make sure they had what they needed. And the way Marsha operated was, if I had it, you had it. I remember hearing an account in which I believe she had found a place to stay. And with that, she not only brought herself, but she brought 5-8 other people. You know, and basically was just like, you know, if I'm free, we all free. I remember reading about her death. It didn't feel right that she would commit suicide and her body just happened to be found in, I believe, the Hudson River. I believe she was murdered, and because she was Black and trans, the police didn't care. I know for a fact that if this were a white cisgender woman, they would be searching far and wide to find out what happened. But because she was Black, trans, and a sex worker, because she, according to them, was just at the bottom of the barrel, they did not care. Marsha, to me, is a reminder to keep walking in my truth, even when the road gets hard, you know, even when the odds are stacked up against me. Do not care for Black trans women once we die, once we become a hashtag. Start caring now, today, in this minute.
So, yeah, that was Marsha P Johnson. And the fact is that, you know, will I be talking about more LGBTQ people in the month of Black History Month? You bet, because they are part of Black history. and I think they should be highlighted as well. So I will be talking about more. This isn't the only one. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to highlight Marsha P Johnson. This is the name that I learned. I will be learning more in the coming days because I want to know more about my history, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. Um, let me make sure. Rory O'Neill's in the chat in Rockfin. Hey Rory, good to see you. So let me go to here. Thank you to S. Cunningham for the super chat. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Lavender Rose says this is historical revisionism. Lavender says Johnson denied he started the uprising. He stated in 1987 that he had arrived around 2 that morning and that the riots had already started when he arrived in a published interview. As far as from what I read so far, Marsha was a trans woman, but maybe I should look more deeper into it. But that's from what I learned. Lavender Rose says Stormy DeLavari started the Stonewall Rebellion. Wasn't a riot. Well, the rebellion part, yeah, it sounds like that basically. Says gay liberation was achieved for the long hard work of many gay people. It took years of hard work to change the laws. Rivera was known for showing up and taking credit for the work of others. And you're asking me, what about the sisters? Like I said, I'll be covering more LGBTQ people throughout the month. Today is the 5th, and so I'll be covering that on the next Jaybe show. But, it is not about erasing people. And if you think that I'm, doing any type of erasure, I do apologize. That's not my goal. My goal is to cover all people of the LGBTQ spectrum. That also includes people who are non-binary, trans, both, trans men and trans women, as well as gay and lesbian. So if you feel that I am being exclusionary, I apologize, but this is my first entry into talking about Black trans people. Black LGBTQ people in Black History Month. And yeah, so I apologize if you feel that I am being revisionist. That's not what I'm doing. So, thanks to Reality Revolution says, amen, bring it, be the media, be the police. Thank you so very much. Don't trust big gender. Never heard that before, but okay. Says you're reading stuff Big Pharma promotes. Look deeper. Big Pharma? I had no idea that I had any type of connection to pharma. But yeah, so I appreciate you deeply for listening. Most people would block me and refuse to debate. I mean, here's the thing. It's not, for me, it's not about debating. It's just learning the objective history about what happened. And if I'm wrong on something, I am willing and able to correct myself and then admit where I'm wrong and where I have a misstep. Because the thing is that part of being in this community is listening and, connecting with people. So if I'm wrong about, this person, then I will willingly on my next show then I'll correct myself, you know. But this is what I researched so far, and I will continuously, talk about it more. Let me see. Introvert Ancom says, I don't think you're exclusionary. Thank you for talking about Marsha and the intersection between race, poverty, class, and being queer. Thank you so very much. John Chaos says, JB, it's not that anyone is accusing you of erasure, but the years of pink washing by the HRC and others erasing the history, it makes it hard to find sources that are not corrupted. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and you guys can email me some sources that you think are more reliable so that I can correct the history. And I'll try to look for it myself. So that I can learn more. And also, if you guys know of any names of the Stonewall veterans that are still alive today, then cool. I would like to be able to interview them and get, especially those of us who are melanin abundant, because I would like to, get their voices, because a lot of people who are LGBTQ who are melanin abundant, our voices are typically silenced, and I want to make sure that we have those voices brought to the fore, because that's also very important. So, yeah. Nubian says, JB, your history is not wrong. It's just a lot more to it that has not been given its due attention. Okay. All right. Cool. So I have to get going because we are reaching the crux of basically the show. And I will be doing more of these as we continue. I have some others that I have in mind that I also want to talk about, because the more we know about these individuals and their struggles for liberation, the better. And it needs to be talked about. Introvert Income says, I see too many leftists around here saying that trans rights is a bourgeoisie issue, not a proletarian issue, and they're just plain wrong. Oh, I had something else I want to show. Wait, did I take it down? Oh, damn. There was something else I was going to show. This has to do with what you just said, Introvert Income. And I should bring it back up again. There's an article. But yeah, so there was an article I was looking at that was from years ago, where it shows that people who are trans are actually getting gender affirming care in Cuba. You see, here's the thing. A lot of people who are trans, especially, and we can go into non-binary, gay, lesbian, all of us, we experience, poverty as well. And a lot of us, most of us, are workers. And so it behooves us to be able to come together with us so that we can also fight for the liberation of the proletariat, because we are the proletariat. So this is why it's also important to start seeing us as just living the human experience, because we're experiencing poverty. We have healthcare issues too. We experience, how many queer people out there experience having to pay for student loan debts that they can't declare bankruptcy on? How many of us are fearful of the police? It's just not a, it isn't just a social issue. It is also an economic issue with LGBTQ people. And so I think that is something that we need to recognize. And so when we talk about our rights, what about when we want to find a place to live and we're denied a place to live because we may be gay or trans? Like, for instance, if I want to find an apartment with my boyfriend, I can't say, oh, this is my boyfriend, because we might get denied. I have to say, oh, well, this is my roommate. What? What if we get married? I can't say this is my husband, because now it's a housing issue, right? Or what if somebody's trans or non-binary and they want to dress either as a femme or a mask, and they can't do that at work, even if it's professional? Now they're being denied their right to work. So now they are more one step closer to homelessness. See? Or what if you're being treated, unfairly when it comes to your health care? And don't get me started on the people who are trans who have to have crowdfunding in order to pay for their gender affirming care in this country. See? So, thank you, Lavender. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll look out for your email. Okay, and put it. If you put in the what's it called? Gosh, if you put in the subject, just put like Black Stonewall veteran, something like that, and then I will, know that is from you, and then I can get that information and do my research, and then in a future show, hopefully within this month of Black History Month, then I can also see if I can bring that person on. That'd be great. So thank you, appreciate it. But that's what it's about. You know what I mean? So this is where our identity and economics come and intersect, which also needs to be talked about. And so we can't just chum it up to identity politics. And identity politics can be a bit of an issue when they're only focusing on identity. Like, for instance, I'm gonna be real with you. There are some gays that are upper echelons of society. They're rich. Like, for instance, the Tim Cooks, right? Do they really care about those of us that are queer, LGBTQIA, that are part of the proletariat? No. Does someone like Pete Buttigieg really care about those of us who may be gay or lesbians or trans or non-binary that are living in poverty? No, he doesn't. He doesn't, right? And so a lot of times they'll be like, well, we care about their issues, and they'll wave the flag, they'll put the White House in rainbow colors. But when it comes to us as getting our living wage, when it comes to us having universal health care, when it comes to us having housing, when it comes to us dealing with law enforcement, you're asking too much. And so this is why it's important to intersect those. Just like with cis Black women, they have an intersection too. You got to talk about that too, man. Because we also have to deal with all this. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to talk about this, particularly on RBN, because Pete the cheat. I want to talk about this on RBN because this is also very important. And true. They don't want us to be human anymore. Absolutely. I definitely agree. So that's my thing. And, I just hope that this was educational, at least in some ways. I'm learning, I'm trying. So, I appreciate you guys not, putting me in the guillotine, so to speak. But, you know, there's a lot that needs to be done. And there's a lot of learning that needs to happen. And I'm just grateful for all of you being here with me today. Also, if you guys go to my channel, I'm also reading Asada Shakur's autobiography. So you guys can go to that. I'll be doing that. I'll be getting into part 2 of chapter 6. Actually, no, I just finished part 1 of chapter 5. I'll be getting into part 1, chapter 6 this week. If you guys want more reading of Dirty Truths by Michael Parenti, I finished it. I'm done. So you guys can go ahead and go to my channel and get a gander at that too. Thank you so much. Did you like the stream? Did you subscribe? Also, make sure to also go to, I'm forgetting words today. Make sure to also go to our Substack as well to get email notifications as well. And also, like I said before, make sure to go to Strive Pensacola and KC Tenants. That's also linked in the description to help people who are really going through it. A lot of us are going through it, but some of us are going through it more than others. And try to enrich and grow in your empathy for others, because that's one thing that the lady in the TED Talk, that's what she said. Sorry, I forgot her name. But that's also very important. We need to get into that. So, thank you all for joining in. If there's, I don't think I missed any super chats. Oh, I do have a tip on Rockfin I need to get to. Okay. This one is from Sir Raj. Oh, man. Okay, hang on. I got you, Roger. I'm not going to forget. Okay. Let me see. Roger says, "Hey Jay, I'm in the past up to the part where the guy's showing off his toilet leaking." Ooh, you're going through. You're gonna go through it watching this, man. Says, going back to the vocab part. Malcolm said, "A man curses because he doesn't have the words to say what's on his mind." Speaking about poverty, man, I had to tell you the conversation I had with an Uber customer I picked up from a Dem fundraiser who was a Dem fundraiser himself, that me and Lucy crashed and got kicked out of. Oh, I think you got more coming. Wait. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. Thanks a lot, Roger. Yeah. I don't see anything else. Yeah, and I'm about to end. But yeah, I think that's okay. Thanks for that, Roger. Oh. Oh. I got you. That's gonna be interesting. That's gonna be quite a read. Okay. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Actually, I'm interested in hearing about that, because some people. Marco says, like, I really don't appreciate how people ignore the fact that there were hundreds of millions of indigenous around the world living in communist states, and they say it can happen practically. Did you mean it can't? They say it can't happen practically? Is that what you meant to say, Marco? Okay. Thank you very much for that, by the way. But yeah, I gotta get going because I'm hungry. My brother's hungry, so I gotta get me something to eat. But anyways, so thank you so much to everybody. Also, I think, is somebody going live today? If somebody's going, stay tuned to RBN because okay, yeah. Thanks a lot, Marco. Appreciate it. Anyway, yourself a good one. All right. Love intensely. Love radically. Be radically empathetic, right? And water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. And just continue to have empathy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mwah. Forehead kisses. I forgot that. Yeah. I know y'all be looking for the forehead kisses from Jaybe. That's right, y'all. Deuces, everybody. Love you.